everybody? Welcome to another video. Hope you're ready to flex those brain muscles. We're going to solve some more quadratic equations. This time we're going to use the square root method. And basically this is a method you could use to solve quadratic equations that look like this, where we have ax squared and we have c, but our b is 0. In other words, we're missing the x term. So we just have something squared and a constant. And what we're going to do is get x squared equals whatever constant. Sometimes we have to solve to get here. We have to do some algebra to get to this point. And then we just take the square root of both sides. So let's see how it works. Remember, because square root of something squared, they kind of cancel each other out. So square root, square root. So this x squared, that square root kind of reverses the x squared. And I get back to x equals square root of 16 is 4. But I got to be real careful, right? Because look what happens. If I plug 4 back in for x squared, I get 16. So we know that answer is correct. But what happens if I plug in negative 4 back in for x? I get negative 4 times negative 4. That's 16 as well. So I'm missing an answer. And that's why when you take the square root of both sides, you always put plus or minus. So what this really means is x equals positive 4, but x also equals negative 4. These are our two solutions. So when you use this method, please do not forget the plus or minus. Okay, here's another example. And whenever I have a constant out in front of the x squared being multiplied, I always just divide both sides by whatever that constant is. So I can just get x squared by itself. That's what I do. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. So I can get x squared by itself. What am I left with? X squared equals 8 over 4, that's 2. Now I can square root both sides. Square root, but I have to plus or minus, remember? So I have x equals plus or minus square root of 2. So occasionally you will see stuff like this, and it's really useful to know how to square root both sides and use this method because it makes it easier. And you could technically solve this by FOILing this out, subtracting 16, getting 0 on one side. It's a longer process though. I already have what I need here. I have something squared equals something, and I can square root both sides, right? So I can square root here, square root here. So this will get rid of that squared. I'll be left with x plus 3. And here I'll be left with the square root of 16, which is 4, but I need to remember what? My plus or minus. So what I have here is x plus 3 equals positive 4, and x plus 3 equals negative 4. So really I still need to set up two equations. My first one being x plus 3 equals positive 4, and solve this for x. And then my second one is going to be x plus 3 equals negative 4, and solve that for x. So I still get two answers. Let's see. I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides here. So I get x equals 4 minus 3. That's 1. X equals 1. What do I get here? If I subtract 3 from both sides, I get x equals negative 4 minus 3. That's negative 7. Here are my two solutions. All right, last example here. We got 2x squared equals 81. I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and then take the square root of both sides. So go ahead and divide by 2. And I'll tell you a little hint here, a little trick. Don't punch this in a calculator and write this as 40.5. Keep it as a fraction. So these 2's are going to cancel. You'll be left with x squared equals 81 over 2. Let me write this a little better. Sorry about that. 81 over 2. And you'll see why it's better to leave it as a fraction. So now look what happens when I take the square root of both sides. I have square root of x squared, that's x, equals plus or minus. And what am I left with? Square root of 81 over 2, really. But there's one thing I can do now. This is the same thing. I can split it up right? I can split it up like this, top and bottom. And you always want to do this, especially when you have a perfect square in either the top or the bottom or both. Because then that's how you simplify it, is you break it up like this. Because now square root of 81 becomes 9. And I'm left with plus or minus 9 over root 2. And now if you want to be really pretty about it, you would rationalize the denominator. Although this is probably a fine answer, but depending on the instructor you have, you can rationalize the denominator by multiplying root 2 over root 2. So your final answer is x equals plus or minus 9 root 2 over 2. There we go. And what this means is x equals positive 9 root 2 over 2, and x equals negative 9 root 2 over 2. Those are our two solutions for x. So I hope this video helped. If it did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe for more. Leave questions in the comments if you have any questions. And until next time, keep flexing those brain muscles, keep making those brain gains.